All right, here we go. So this will be a session on race director. The intent of this session isn't for those that might want to learn race director from beginning to end. Essentially what I did is I looked at the race director enhancements I've made in the last 6 months, and I made sure as we're passing through different menus that I point out all of the things that I seem to hide so well and people are surprised when it's there. So we'll do that. So this is, for me personally, this is year number 3 of being with RunSignUp, and in year 1, it was, we're going to get started on race day scoring immediately, and then PCI compliance came up, and next thing you know, it was year 2. We're going to get to it right away, believe me, and then something else came up, and I'm thinking, hey man, this is going to maybe last the whole time, and year 3, which we're in, we're serious about race day scoring, and yep, this year we're serious about race day scoring. So I'm glad to see that. I like how Bob described it in a meeting on Monday. If you're a race director user, and he kind of described it this way as well, as you start looking at race day scoring, and you're doing this many races, at first a few you might want to try it out on, and then as you go up that learning ramp more and more, and then pretty soon it's 50-50, and then 5 years from now there's only a few of those weird races that you would still need to use race director. So what's nice about that for me is, so Alan Jones is kind of my hero too, and he's 80 now. I go on Medicare next year. So if I could be, yeah, if I could be still doing this when I'm 80, that's a serious goal of mine. So my goal isn't to get out quickly. I don't intend to do that at all. My goal is to ramp out, and this really gives me that opportunity. I'm actually invited into Race Day Go to do some of the development, and at first they put me in charge of report footers, so that'll be my contribution. So I've been only involved with Race Day scoring from maybe a coaching standpoint, and that's worked out very well as we've been in design, and as you can see, I think the product is off to a great start, so I'm excited about it. Kind of a secret goal of mine is, as you come up with all of those things you come up with, okay, race day scoring, let's see you do that. And so, there'll be a lot of that, so it's going to be, I think it's going to be a very healthy experience, and it's one that works out very well for me. And I just want to thank everyone that's come up to me and said the same thing. Boy, we really appreciate your support. The one thing that moving to RunSignUp did that I never even banked on, we didn't even talk about it when I was joining RunSignUp, was the help I've gotten on support. Race director support is now 3 people, 3 competent, well, at least 2 competent people in Matt Avery and Megan Carey. And so the thing I want to remind everyone is that weekends are work days for us. And so you don't have to start every support call with, sorry to bother you on a weekend. Yeah, we're there, you're in the weekend business. Weekends are work days for you guys too. So don't be afraid to call us. So it's essentially Matt and me on Saturdays and Megan and me on Sundays. So one of us in so many of my weekend support calls go about 75% of the way through you describing the problem, the light bulb goes off. And it ends with, thanks for helping me with that. I haven't said a thing. So I wish they'd all go that way, but we're in an environment where our heartbeat is normal, we're comfortable, and often able to think better than you can, because I don't time many races, but when I do, it scares me to death. I don't know how you do it, but I'm glad you're doing it. So, I learned from Alan Jones many years ago. You're not in the software business, you're in the support business. I think you all know how important support is to me, and it's how I've it's always been a #1 priority with Race Director, and it's such a natural transition to the RunSignUp team because they get it. I mean, they're in the same boat, so it works out very well there. So I'd encourage you to, and I want to talk a little bit about the Race Director development cycle. So one thing I do is I try to, and it's not always possible, I try to do enhancements on Mondays and Tuesdays. And the first thing I do on Monday morning is I build a brand new full install, which basically is Race Director that you used last weekend to score your race. Monday and Tuesday, I'm doing most of my work on making enhancements, and on Wednesday, I kind of put a stamp on Race Director, and I do I publish all those enhancements, and that's when if you start up Race Director on late Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, you get that little pop. Hey, there's been an update. So I'd encourage you to, even though you're saying, man, it worked perfect last weekend, what if this update causes a bug? Because there is that possibility. But on the support line, our response of, oh, that got fixed last week is much more frequent than, oops, that looks like a bug. So I think if you're cautious about doing those updates prior to your race, I think you're best to do it. Because if worst case scenario is you get to your race and it's something very unusual that change that was made didn't account for and it's a problem, worst case scenario is you have to take the time to uninstall Race Director, and when you reinstall it, you're going to get last weekend's copy of Race Director. So if you're interested in seeing all of the updates that have happened, because you no longer need to go to the Race Director website to install the update, but that page is still there, and it lists all of the changes that have been made. And that list is pretty long. All right, so today I want to spend in this group. We can talk about the RunSignUp integration. So a lot of my discussion today is going to be about the RunSignUp integration, and I want to talk about your participant data because we've actually made some of the integration a little bit tougher on you just to help you avoid problems. So the main thing I want you to always think about is when, and this actually is true no matter if it's RunSignUp or Active or Sign Me Up or Get Me Registered. I'm working on integration with them right now. Prior to race day, those systems own your participant data. So on Race Director, we have a new setting for participant data about the mode you're in. Are you in push mode or pull mode? So in the days, and now we are talking about only the RunSignUp integration. In the days prior to your race, RunSignUp owns that data, and you should make all of your changes and updates at RunSignUp. And when you need that data in Race Director, no problem. Go on to update participants, delete everybody, pull it all in. 2 days later, if you need that same information, same steps. Delete everybody, import everybody. The import, it takes some time, but it's, we're talking about a few minutes. So it's critical that you update the data in the system that owns it. At that magic moment when you really, you're getting close to race execution, you close down registration at RunSignUp, the kiosk activity is tapering off to almost nothing. We know this isn't a perfect world, but at some point in time, I'm going to do my last import, and then you need to change the switch to, and you'll see it in a minute, to push mode. So now we're in push mode. The key thing about this switch that we see, pull mode versus push mode, has to do with participant data only. So it would be unusual, but there would be no problem if your participant, maybe you forgot to change it to push mode. If you start scoring the race, results data is going to go, it's going to go up irregardless of what the mode is for the participant data. So with, obviously with results, it's always pushing. So don't be worried about that. All right, on to the demo. And I'm going to ask Megan to drive. So the first thing I want to, for race day scoring, or for scoring or publishing through results up to RunSignUp, you basically have two kinds of scenarios. It's either a race where you did registrations at RunSignUp, which we're going to show first, or it's a race where you did registration somewhere else and we're just pushing the results. We usually call that a RDGO race. So the first scenario is, okay, in this race, we've done registrations at RunSignUp. So if you would go to Tailor Options, and on the partner setup screen, yeah, all right. Yeah. Up in the upper right-hand corner is where you see the pull mode and push mode. So prior to race day, this should always be, in fact, I think when you use the assign button to assign the race director race to the RunSignUp race, after you leave that screen, you're automatically put into pull mode. Okay, so in this race, let's go to Tailor Divisions, and I think many of you are aware of this, but just let's select that first division and edit it, and let's look at the RSU button. So the numbers you see on the, escape back, sorry. So the numbers you see on the RSU button, two numbers. The first number is the RunSignUp event number, and the second number is the result set ID. And often, most often, there's a nice simple relationship of it's a 5K and a 10K. At Race Director, I've got two divisions. At RunSignUp, we had two events, no problem. But there's lots of scenarios where it's not quite that. We might have a single event at RunSignUp called Sprint Relay. But in Race Director, we want to score that as three divisions. So in that scenario, we're actually going to see that later. But in that scenario, in the three divisions, the event number is going to be the same because they all point to the sprint relay. But the result set ID is going to be different because we want to have a different place to see the male relay finishers than the mixed versus the female. So that's a scenario where it's one RSU event to many race director divisions. There's probably many more scenarios of many RSU events to a single race director division. And we have lots of different ways of handling that. So if your race is in that scenario and you're not quite sure the best way, that's a great time for a call to the support line, and we can help you through that. You're going to see us demonstrate a few of those in a minute. So right now, in fact, I think this race has a relay division, so where we could see that. If you scroll down, relay team sprint. So let's edit that division and use so when you use the RSU button, and we need to select the, what was this, sprint relay? Yeah, sprint relay. So whenever race director division is flagged as a relay division, you are prompted twice. The first prompt is to assign that division, and then the second prompt is what group type, which is how at RunSignUp you separate male, female, and mixed. In this case, I think they only had a single group type, so it was pretty straightforward. All right.
Is that event field still relevant?
Okay, it's no. So the event field is needed by some results publishing systems. Exact was one of them. And it was a way for you to basically group results by distance. So if you had a 5K, 10K, and it was, each of those had 3 divisions, Open, Clydesdale, Athena, you would set up a single event for the collapsing of the results publishing. Unfortunately, Exact was the very first system that I began publishing data to. So I put this piece in there, and it became useful for others as well. I think CT Live, not many actually published the CT Live, but it worked well there too. So essentially, a single event per race is created for you automatically and assigned to divisions for you automatically. It can occasionally get out of sync. And for RunSignUp, I think I've got it everywhere where even if you made a mistake and didn't assign the event, it doesn't. At one time, it would stop you from publishing. And I think we've put the plug in all of the. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I still sometimes see people, they'll get calls where results aren't going to RunSignUp, and for whatever reason, there's no event selected for any of them. So if you find yourself stumped, you don't know why, when you go into enter results, ship results, and click publish, nothing happens in the top right corner. You don't see that it publishes to RunSignUp. Double check your divisions here. Make sure you have something selected. I've noticed it happen if you renew a race and then delete like a division from the top or something like that. I've seen some funky things that have happened, so
all right.
It still does occur and pop up sometimes.
I've got it, yeah. So essentially if you see that happen, I'm trying to plug that dike in every possible hole that it could happen, and so I'll try again. All right, so event is unfortunately required, and I try really hard to fill it in for you, but that could be a problem if it's not populated. All right, so here's this was a race where we did registrations at RunSignUp, so let's go import them. So one thing, if you cancel or close that a minute. One thing I did, if you notice in the taskbar way at the top, so here's a secret for everyone, I finally did reposition the button for push versus pull. So if you find, oops, I forgot to change it in tailor options, the name of the button is confusing because it's right now we're in pull mode, so the name on the button says push, meaning if you want to change it to push. So we're going to keep it in pull mode, and we're going to do our import. And so all of the event to division mapping is done. We'll get registrations. Yep, go ahead, okay. All right, so let's create that import. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, okay, so here's what happened there. An important step I forgot to tell Megan is let's delete everybody first. So basically, and I'm pretty sure most everybody understands this, there's a key component in all of this is the RunSignUp registration ID, because you may or may not have bib numbers assigned at RunSignUp. So the import is always looking at the registration ID, and because we didn't first delete everybody, essentially when those 300 and whatever participants came in again, it didn't add anybody because I got perfect matches on all of them and just updated race director with the most recent information. So, and I don't think there's a need to redo that because I think most everyone in here gets how you import participant data. And we need to move on. All right, so let's go to race 248. So we were talking about that there's lots of different scenarios where you might have a different number of events at RunSignUp but you want a single, got to make sure I'm describing this scenario properly. So, So what I want to show you now is linked divisions where, one approach with this, and there's actually a different one which we can go over with you on a support call having to do with super events at RunSignUp. But one approach in Race Director is when you have the 5K and then you've got the 5K military because there's a discount. One approach is, okay, let's create those same divisions in Race Director, but for results publishing and results printing in Race Director, we're always going to want to link them. So in this case, let's go to Taylor Divisions, because we did have some linked divisions. So we're still in our importing from a race that you did registrations at RunSignUp. It's pretty important that prior to doing the build-up, where you select the RunSignUp race and then use the RSU button, prior to using that RSU button, make sure you have the linking step done first. Otherwise, you might end up with some remnant result sets at RunSignUp. So in this case, we have division number 2 linked to division number 1. And in this case, at RunSignUp, the sign-up was done based on heat, the 9 o'clock heat, the 9:20 heat, and so forth. But we really want all the publishing done to a single result set. So here's where, on the division record, if we look at the numbers again, so I edit that so you can see it better. You see that right-hand number ends in 608. And the left-hand number, which is the event, ends in 602. But if you go to Division 2, oh, you were, okay, all right. Okay, so yeah, so in Division, what are we in now? Division 1, it's 598 is the event number, and the result set ID ends in 608. And if we go to Division 2, we see that it's a different event number, but the result set number is the same. So when you publish the results, it's going to collapse all of those linked divisions into a single result set at RunSignUp. When you're running the Race Director reports, you're probably doing the same thing. You're combining all those divisions. All right?
This is actually a really important thing to understand. I get a lot of questions about RunSignUp results integration. When you sync your divisions to your events, at that point, the result sets are created at RunSignUp. So a lot of people they're not clear as to when those results sheets are built in the drop-downs. This is the point where they're built. So you need to make sure that you have your Race Director setup configured so you have all of your segments and everything like that defined before you do your event to division mapping. Otherwise, those aren't going to show up in the results correctly. So this is where the results are created at RunSignUp. Just keep that in mind as you're building races.
Okay, so actually I have an example of, so let's switch to race 524. So here's a brand new capability, and it has to do with, I think you might often get into this situation is, well, we've got, I can't remember what the scenario was for what we're going to show you. You show up to the race and you realize or you talk to the race director after we already have some registrations pulled in, and you realize that the use case that pushed this at first was Clydesdale and Athena, which we want separate divisions in Race Director, was set up as a custom question at RunSignUp. So there's a new facility where, so let's go to Taylor Divisions. And in this case, if you go to the open division, you'll see that the event number is 079. And so let's go to division number 2. And usually when you hit the RSU button, here's where you would select a different RSU event. But if you select exactly the same one as we had in division 1, so hit the RSU button, and select, the first one, you're going to get this new prompt saying, hey, you already chose that one. But is this using the same event, but we want to qualify it by some response to a custom question? In this case, the answer is yes. And so when you hit here, you actually, in this case, they only had one custom question, but you would see a list of all the custom questions. And then when you select the custom question, you get a list of all the programmed responses for that custom question. So it's the response that really drives this. So it's a really cool way of doing that. So, and it actually saved, I can't remember, I think it was Todd that had this scenario, and I was nervous because only one other race had ever used it, and I think it went off without a hitch. Yeah. All right, so now we're gonna move into a Race Director Go scenario. So the registrations came from somewhere else, spreadsheet, whatever. So here's how the setup would normally go when we want to actually build this race at RunSignUp for results processing only. So let's go to Taylor Divisions. Oh, I'm sorry, we need to be in race 215. All right, so in Taylor Divisions, if you click on the 5K, you'll see the participant count. And there's a new button here, Browse button. So you can actually, click that Browse button right under the division list.
Why am I not seeing? Oh.
Yeah, so that will, so who is in there, it's just kind of a handy way if you want to see what's in there. You can't change any of this data, but a lot of times you're on the screen and, well, who would have registered for this? And so you can see right away. All right, so, so let's look at, now unknown participants. So big change here recently. And this was Matt's idea. And I tried to claim it as my own, but I don't think he'll let me. No longer do you set the unknown participants. Number one, I recommend you always have this division. The terminology is very ancient. We used to call these Bandit Divisions for poll tag scoring for people that cross the line without a bib, a place to tuck them away while you research it. For chip systems, it's almost always for people you just didn't get registered. So it's nice to, tuck them away, quarantine them, if you will. So now on the division setup, there's a setting for this, and in the settings, this bib number range is important only for if you ever get weird. One case I heard is some shoe manufacturer has a chip in their shoe now, and sometimes it'll cause a read at the finish line that is totally foreign to what you'd be expecting. And when you do the results import, it might even come through and race director says, what do you do with this? So it has, from that chip read, it has no idea what bib number to give. So it would use a bib number from this range. So it's probably rare, if at all. And a lot of the middleware would filter that out before race director would ever see it. So, but if it ever, a read like that ever came through, it's nice to have a range of bib numbers you would never be using in your race. The other thing that we have is at the very bottom, if you're, my suggestion is use Division 99 for this. So if the way you have set it up for this particular race is the way you want it for all your races, if you hit that, make these settings a default, then when you create a new race, that division will automatically get created for you with these settings. All right. Okay, so let's go into Taylor options. All right, and then on the chip system setup, I want to show another setting. All right, on the score top finishers by gun time, this is a USATF requirement. I know a lot of timers that if an official isn't going to be there, they'd stay away from this because this is scoring gray area. No matter how you solve this problem, it creates questions. So I've tried to give you as many settings as I can for this. But when you print an overall, primarily we're almost always scoring by chip time. And then we've got this weird stuff going on with the top finishers that they kind of have a chip time, and race director knows what the chip time is, but we don't show it, we don't score by it. USATF says you should never show it, but some timers want to show it. And when you print the result, I even have a setting to fake out the overall finish list to push them to the top, even though they have a slower chip time, which only leads to other questions. Why is this guy with a slower chip time at the top of the list? And no matter what you do, so the idea is try to do this in a way where you'll get the fewest questions, but you'll never get no questions. But there is a new setting. The one on the far right is, obviously score it by chip time. And in various cycles of race director, because I would get requests, show it anyway, so I'd start showing it anyway, and then people would say, no, don't show it. So now you tell me whether you want the top finishers' chip time to show or not. There's a finish links. You see a new button here. There's a new and better way of assigning a folder on your computer where you want all your finish links files to go. We've gone. I think we've got all the bugs out of that. I think, Matt, you've been a big user of that. So nothing else really new on that screen. Go to the finish line tab and set the wave to like division. All right, so there's a new button here that basically, if you have a requirement to send the photographer time of day finish data, or finisher data, so that they know by bib number what time of day they crossed, and you have wave times, race director doesn't really store anywhere a relative time of day finish until so what you would do is you would make a backup of your race, and you would use this button, which will basically convert all of your wave times into start times. And then when you create an export out of race director and you choose time of day of finish, it's all going to be accurate, no matter how you did the waves. So that's kind of a nice, well-hidden, but it's surprising how often that question comes up. All right, so let's go to the partner tab. So now so here's our race. We did the registrations at Get Me Registered. We've imported them in. Now we want to send everything, the race setup and all the participants to RunSignUp. So this is done on the partner tab. We're going to switch this to a race director go race and use the assign button. Yep. We'll fill in the right-hand side of the screen, so I don't know, 101 East Main. This is all needed. Austin, Texas. US. Time zone. Okay, auto URL. In this case, so this is, RunSignUp / what do we want? Guess what? Lots of freedom runs out there, so put a 123 at the end of it. All right. All right, so this is what's needed to set up a new race. And yes, we're ready to go. And you're asked division by division, do you want it to go up? Yes, yes, no. Oh yeah, shoot, forgot to delete it at RunSignUp. Okay, so change it to 124. All right, beautiful. And now do we want to send up the participants? Certainly. So at this point in time, okay, there wasn't anybody in the fun run. So right now, the race is ready to score. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to go into Taylor divisions. Okay, yeah, key point here is if you have divisions in race director that you want to link, doing that ahead of this step is a really good idea. You can do it later, and it'll fix everything up properly, but there will be some remnant result sets at RunSignUp that you'd actually have to go there and delete them. Okay, so let's go to back on this partner tab. Even though you've done your best, there just are some times where you mess up, and all of a sudden you got all your participants up at RunSignUp twice. Often that happens when you're sharing backups with the timer, and all of a sudden they decide to maybe publish everybody as well. There's different kinds of scenarios where you can do that. So just to let you know, a good way to clear the deck is, and we're not going to do this, is when you use the sync button here. Often new users of creating a race confuse this with, okay, I'll hit this button to sync everything up to RunSignUp, send all the participants. That's not the purpose of this. It's really a check to see everybody I have in Race Director seem to be in sync with everybody that's at RunSignUp. And the thing that does at the very end is it gives you a list of everybody at RunSignUp in order by their registration ID. So what you can do is copy down the registration ID of the very first person and the very last person, and at the end of the sync check it will ask, do you want to delete any of these? And you would say yes, and you do beginning to end, and that clears everybody. And then there's another button, reset reg IDs. Then you would use that, and everybody's reg ID in this race now is also reset, and we can push everybody up, and then we'll be in sync again. So when that happens to you 7 months from now, you won't remember how to do that, but when you call us, we will. Let's minimize Race Director. So here's what I think is the most common timing scenario is you've got Race Director doing auto import, but now I need to start spitting out the age group reports. So there's it's right up here. Yeah, actually, if you would, Megan, go to start. Let's go to. So if you scroll down, Race Director when it installs it, and this is Windows 10, which I think probably most are using. There's a folder for Race Director which shows you all of the different apps, and one of the newer ones is Race Day Results, I think it is. So when you start this, and this has gone through some bugs for sure, and it's pretty stabilized now, but there's more bugs to come, I'm sure. But give this a try, because it's not harmful at all. The idea here is let Race Director keep going, doing the cycling of scoring, and here's where you would go to run your reports. So it's basically all I have is, and I'm going to add team reports to this too. So this lets you do all of the reporting while Race Director keeps going. So after each cycle, the data that our Race Director reports needs is refreshed, and so you should be able to go back to this. Same report in a few minutes, and it will look a little deeper on the overall report. So that's the idea. And I know this is impossible on race days, but if you encounter a crash here on this little app, obviously it doesn't harm anything, but if you have a minute to write down that, basically it'll tell you the program that crashed and the line number. And what's happening is you're contending with some data that I didn't expect you would. Send that to me. Those are very easy for me to reproduce and fix. So, yes, sir.
So is that pulling the result data from Race Director Go, you said?
No, that is pulling the results data from local Race Director. So this would work just as well if it's not a Race Director Go race. Works just as well, just the same way. Let's say you're not publishing any live results. This is just as useful in that scenario. Because, yeah, that's a great question. It does not use results data that we're publishing to RunSignUp. It uses results data that the chip results importing is building within Race Director. So let's go back to Race Director. Here's another little known capability, but very useful capability. So we'll go to the overall finish list under reports. Okay, so let's say, and this is, I think, an actual example. Let's say that the race director says, really like this, we got this competition going between the cities of Rowlett and Garland. Who can get the most people competing? So can you produce a report only for those two cities? Well, yes, I can. Can you publish them? Well, yes, you can, and here's how. So we're going to go to the select data, and actually, I think I have a template for it. Go to save criteria. Yep, select data again. So we're running and saved criteria. Oh shoot, I didn't. Well, all right. Well, unfortunately, I don't know the zip code ranges. Unfortunately, I restored over this race. So here's what no demo goes perfect. So here's what we're going to do. I had pre-programmed like the selection range for the zip codes for those two cities, and unfortunately, I don't know what they are. So the idea is you would run the Roland report and publish it to RSU. So I'm going to show you how we do the publish to RSU. So let's say we had that criteria set. Let's run the report. And notice option number 5 on the list under HTML is RDGo. So what this means is I want to produce this overall results report as a separate results set at RDGo. So go ahead and choose that and generate the report. You're going to be given a grid that will show you all of the little custom result sets we have out there, which is empty right now. So it will give you the ability to, if you had published it previously and now you're publishing an updated version, you could select it and republish. So in this case, we're just going to run the report. And if you go to the drop down, oh yeah, and there it is. And yeah, and if you go to that drop down, you see it's a special report. And you would actually have named it Roland participants, and the other one you would have named Garland participants. So I know you run into all kinds of scenarios where you need to produce these special lists. Team reports all have an RDGo option. So you can run the overall detail report, the overall summary report, and produce a result set. So now you'll see 5K, 10K, and large city teams. So it's a cool way of getting not only the standard result sets, but and if you run across special reports, predicted time. Was one that someone said, man, I'd like to get that up there. And so you're able to produce an art. So when you go into most race director reports, you won't see an RDGo option, but if there's ever one you need, let us know, and we can, it's pretty simple to add a new one. All right, so the next thing I want to show is, and I want to talk about this because it's a very common scenario. So we were talking about pull and push mode. So you were in pull mode until 7:30, and the race went off at 7:30. And guess what? At 7:35 and 7:40, 2 more people registered at RunSignUp. They were given their chips, and maybe they went off in a later wave, but you didn't get race director updated. Well, guess what? You're going to get an unknown participant. But guess what? They were given the correct chip. When it became an unknown participant, it was done with the correct bib number, and it was put into your Division 99. So let's do that. Let's go to how does this work? We're going to go to update participants, and I'm sorry, close this. That's erase all results. All right. Yeah. All right, that's fine. So actually, no, erase them again. We need to get rid of everything. All right, so go into update participants, and let's get rid of bib number 159. Just delete them. And close. Go to update or enter results, chip results, and let's hit the import button. Ah, shoot. Go to, let me drive here a minute. Yeah, restoring this race didn't do me any favors. I got to remember where I put it. Ah, yeah, it was, whew, picked the right one. All right, so, the famous, let's set up 159. Yep. All right, so one participant was set up. So here's and guess what? They're in division 99 or whatever. Here's the really cool new feature. So we're going to go to update participants. We're in push mode, so we're going to, this secret little way of doing it, we're going to switch it to pull mode, and we're going to import from RunSignUp, and we're going to re-import previously imported participants. New setting. Look for participants already in race director and match on. Most often you would use bib number. There might be occasions where when they register they weren't assigned a bib number, so then you can match on name. In this case, we're okay with bib number. Create import. Okay, 383 participants updated. And now when we go to 159, I hope this works. Yeah, great. There they are. Yeah, and yeah, the only step I wish I would have done prior to doing the import, if we would have gone to 159, it would have been unknown participant. And now, because we had that setting on, even though the registration ID for this guy wasn't in race director, it saw the match on bib number, and realized it didn't need to do an addition, it needed to do a change. So what happened was, of the 382 that were already in race director, it recognized those as changes because of the matching registration ID. And the one that it would have produced an ad for prior to the setting, it actually also made a change for that record because it found the match on bib number. So a very, very common scenario, and in a something you probably would have never thought of, but that's how we've addressed that. Announcer screen. So one thing as I think about in race director, I've just begun race director 2018. And it won't be available to the folks that want the early release, probably for another month or so. The one thing I'm going to do is, Matt, what's the error? What's when we lose an hour happens and all of a sudden an authorization problem happens? Yeah, key authentication fails. So what's going on here is when you do an activity in race director that interacts with RunSignUp, I do that based on your user ID and password as a timer and the authorization I get from RunSignUp to do it. RunSignUp gives me that authorization and I can keep it as long as I'm active. But as soon as I go dead for an hour, I need to ask for authorization again. So what happens, and I've got a few places where I catch it and many places where I'm not catching it. So if you get that key authentication fails, the solution is close race director, start it up again, you're good to go. So one thing I'm going to do in Race Director 2018, a problem I have right now is I make hundreds of calls from different areas of Race Director to RunSignUp, and in a huge development mistake, I didn't develop a common error handling routine. So in Race Director 2018, I'm going to have that, and so when I get a key authentication failed, I'm going to intercept it and authenticate you, and you'll never know it. So right now, unfortunately, you're going to have to live with that. So if you walk away from your PC for over an hour and you go to try to do something in Race Director, some things it will sense it and take care of it, but in other functions it just doesn't. So we'll get that corrected. As far as new development, I'm going to pay a lot more attention to how useful might this feature be in conjunction with race day scoring. So announcer screens, for example. Well, something came up yesterday. Printed receipts. We may not have a solution for that for some time in race day scoring. But in Race Director, you can run a kiosk machine. So one of the things that I'm quite sure we'll be building between race day scoring and Race Director and RunScore and any other scoring system is a pipeline where you can send the race structure and the scoring structure and build that same race in Race Director. And initially, we might have that pipeline go the other way too. So I go to File Open, and here's the simple little race that I've done for years in Race Director. And I'm quite sure we'll be able to give you a button that says, okay, create a Race Day Go race with the same age groups and the same, the best it can to give you a better starting point. So I'm going to look for functions that will work well in tandem with race day scoring as we go through that time frame of many years until we can finally put Race Director into the sunset. So one of the things that I've worked on recently is a pretty nice improvement to the announcer screen. And it's called the announcer screen, but think of it, this is not the announcer screen designed for the announcer. This is the announcer screen designed for projecting in some areas for people to watch the race happening. Race Director has a really cool one now for cross country, where you see the finish list on the left-hand side and you see the team scores on the right-hand side, and it's just really cool to watch that in an actual race. Those teams are going up and down, and it's. But on a standard race and on a lap race, years ago, to the announcer screen on the right-hand side, I added a leaderboard capability. But the difficulty was there was some settings at the bottom where you could select the division and 5K and top finishers, and then it will just stay there. And then you might change it to masters. So now there's a way to have the leaderboard actually cycle through all of the categories. And I want to and I've had that going for some time on the standard race, but I also had that working on the lap race. So go to Reports Announcer. Yeah, and I'm going to have to drive here. So Race Director interfaces with all of the chip systems. Race result, and I actually interface through the chip systems middleware. So Matt was showing you timing and scoring with MyLaps. Race result has a component of software called RR Connector, and it has a really, really cool replay feature. And replays out of middleware are really important for a developer because it gives me a nice way to simulate a race. What I like about how Race Result does it is when you do a MyLaps replay, for example, and on an announcer screen, you see the first guy come across, and then you have to wait like 20 minutes for the next one. In the Race Result connector, when you do a replay, you can do a crossing every X number of seconds, so like every second. And so it works well for, this race wasn't scored with Race Result, but I've produced a results file that I can replay just to demonstrate this. So, when you start up the announcer screen, the options button has a new setting over here for leaderboard, and then there's a setup button, and you can select that the leaderboard be by category or just a bare finish list. We want this to be by category, and for the demonstration, I'm only selecting a few divisions, and this is kind of a typical lap race where age groups didn't really come into play, that was more divisions. So I've selected that I want the leaderboard to cycle through these different categories. All right, so I'm going to connect to our connector. And I'm actually working with race results right now. There's going to be a selection for race director at some point in time, but TCP/IP server is what we want to do the connection, and just the standard settings work. And so now on the announcer screen, we should see that we're connected. We can put this, obviously if you're displaying this, you don't want all these buttons showing, so you can put it into projection mode. I have no idea how, I'm pretty sure I can go quite big. I'm going to keep it at 20. Yep, fits, good. All right, so let's go back to our connector, and let's replay this file. Lap race, there you are. And here's where you can replay it. Right, the default is 1 second, which works pretty good. So here we go. All right. So you notice, so what's happening on the right side of the screen, and I've got it faster than you would probably do it. I've got it at every 3 seconds. You'd probably want this maybe 5 or 6, or you can fool around with it, but pretty neat. That's kind of a neat thing to be displaying. So I've got some additional capabilities for standard races where if that gives you a single leaderboard. So forget the finish list. I just want to show the leaderboard itself. And there's a separate race director app for that called Leaderboard. And I worked very hard on that last fall and showed it at some of the CHIP conferences to the unfortunate response of, you mean then I'm going to have to set up like a separate display and a separate computer and have someone man that? From the same timers that are saying, this is getting to be a competitive business, what do we do? So this, granted, this does take some additional setup. You're going to have to allocate some time to doing it. In complicated races where you have a lot of waves in different races, you might have to reset, at a certain point in time, you would only maybe want the 5K, and another point in time, you would maybe want another display for the 10K. So new capabilities. So as you want to start doing more of this, let me know. And this is kind of new stuff, so let me know what your needs and wants are there. All right, checkmat, race 400. All right, so in 2017, when you go to set up timing points, we introduced a new setting called checkmat. So a checkmat, by definition, is here's a timing. And terminology has been interesting as we've been looking at RD scoring as well. And we're trying to come up with the best terminology. So I called these things timing points years ago, and I've kept it there. But in race director scoring, we really felt a lot better about calling that timing locations. In fact, I think in Race Director 2018, I'm going to start calling these timing locations, because location is a much better term for what these are. They're often a single reader, but not always. And, a timing location could be multiple readers. So when you set up what Race Director now calls timing points, a new setting for a check mat. So a check mat is something, I'm never going to use this result as far as a split time, but I'm very interested in people that cross that mat for statistical analysis. Like, this is a mat that if you hit this, you've got to be on the marathon course. In this little example, it was a mile and a 2 mile. And so this was a mat out on the 2 mile course that you would only cross if you were in the 2 mile division. So let's go to Tailor Options. And results 1. And when you go to timing points, well, on a single segment race, normally you don't need to set up timing points because there's only 2, start and finish. But now when you hit the timing points button, you get a new prompt saying, is there a check mat? And yes, there is. And we've hit the check mat setting. And once you do that, when you go to assign timing point to segments, you'll never see check mat as a choice like in a 3-segment race. All right, so let's go to end results, chip results. So and the data that you get from the check mat, I haven't yet or developed a place to store that data. So right now the way it works, and once this gets enough use, I'll improve this, but the way this works right now is you import the check mat data and you run the report. So it's a 2-step process. When you're done looking at the report, that check mat data goes away. It's nowhere in Race Director. So there isn't a report menu that says check mat data. The only way you can get it right now is to do the import. So go ahead and hit the import button and just click OK. All right, so we hit, there were 131 reads. Would you like to see the report? Yes. So this is kind of a, this report is designed for what I've heard people needing check mats for. For example, a check mat might be, I want to see everybody that's crossed this more than once. Because those in the X division should have crossed it at least 3 times or whatever. So the bottom part, more than and fewer than. And those are truly more than and fewer than. So if you have fewer than and you set it to 3, 3 won't qualify. So if you wanted to see 3, you would have to set in fewer than to 4. We're going to leave it wide open right now because we're really only interested in use the control key and select only 1 mile divisions. That one, and that one. And then run the report. So it only found 1. Out of the 131 reads, it only found this 1 person that wasn't in a 2 mile division. If you would have left the setting to all, it would have shown you everything. So that's the idea on a check mat. You're curious as to who hit this. The reporting options I've given you, I'm sure, do not cover every scenario you would run into. So if in a race you're going to use a check mat, unfortunately, you'll have to get your equipment out, do a few scans, and look at your choices on this report and make sure it's going to give you what you want. And if it doesn't, let us know. And this is pretty simple stuff that we could certainly enhance this in time for your race if you needed it. All right, cross country. We're fast approaching cross country season. Anyone interested in doing live results? MyFinish.com is still the only Race Director live results solution for cross country. Early on, we had a hope of having race day scoring far enough along where that could be the case, but it won't be. So we've kept myfinish.com available if you want. If you want live results, that's a pretty decent design in that when you scan the QR code or you go to that site, it starts off with the team list and the order they finished, and then you can drill down into the finishers. So myfinish.com has a really nice solution for cross country. It's $50 a race, so that's the downside. It's a bit more expensive than our RD Go races for sure. So, but I've added a couple new features, and this is in race 6. All right, so let's go to Taylor Divisions. No, sorry, Taylor Options. You should have known I meant that. All right, Results 2 tab is where all the setup happens for cross-country. And so you'll see a new setting now right to the right of where you set the displacement rules, 5 and 7 usually. Occasionally, you want those to be different by division. And you would, in that case, you would always have to return to the screen and run your middle school events with maybe 3 and 5. You now have a way to have different scoring rules by division. And in this case, you'll see it's 5 and 7 for every division except for the 2 middle school divisions where it was 3 and 5. All right, close. And let's close that and go to reports. Let's go to the finish list first. So any of you, team reports, cross-country finish list. There we go. Any of you that are doing college cross-country, NCAA, where the TFRRS is required, I contacted them last week and there are no changes. So the direct athletics or whatever, that integration, no different this year, but it's required. So, there's, if you're new to cross-country scoring and you have college, this is something you want to get with the meet director immediately because they'll know all about it. And Race Director has a pretty easy integration. And this is where all of the integration happens. Athletic.net is the other one for mostly high school, I think. And if you have your own web publishing for cross-country, this GRU is a way to produce an FTP, a results file, so your own results can process it. Okay, close this, and let's go to detailed team report. So just scroll down and do a middle school race. And so when you run the report, you'll get this new prompt reminding you that for this division, it's 3 and 5. So I think it's pretty rare that you would ever use this, but that's a new feature. And yeah, we can just close this. Nothing's new on the report. Go back into that report. There is, for any of you that ever need dual meet mode, meaning at this event, there are 6 schools, and the meet director wants to see how each compete against each other. Race director's always had a way to do that, but it's been very clumsy. So now there's the setting dual meet mode, and when you run the report now, just do like the first division. Yep. Okay. Yep. Yeah. All right. Now you, instead of answering, match by match, which do you want, you can actually select the ones that you want to do. All right? So again, both of these are kind of obscure. Not many need this dual meet reporting, and not many need different scoring rules by division, but those are our cross-country changes. The last thing about cross-country is under help getting started. There's a very, what I love about cross-country is everybody does it the same way. It's almost always the same distance, 5K. They almost always do separate races by some kind of varsity, junior varsity category, and coaches all are very similar in that they don't want to say who's on varsity until the last minute. So Race Director has a pretty nice way of taking care of all of that. And the scoring guide here goes through that step by step. So that's a good place to start with cross country. All right, race 84. All right, so I get the question a lot. I've got this standard race that is a whole bunch of splits, And what I don't like about how Race Director does that is the only way to see all the split details is to produce an HTML report, and you see all those splits all the way wide, and all of a sudden your HTML looks like this. I like how the lap results report does it, where you have an individual and all their splits data goes down. And often these races they have very few participants, so you're not killing a tree if you run the report. So now, if you have a race that's 6 or more segments, you can actually run lap race reports. So Matt ran the Missoula Marathon last week, and it probably isn't a good use case for it, but it's a good way to show how it works. So under reports, normally you would go to the like the overall finish list and produce it out to HTML or a spreadsheet so you can see all the splits. But now you can actually run the lap results report. Yeah, just the full marathon.
Would it let you do 2 divisions with varying amounts of segments? in the
Yes.
same report?
Yeah. You could select. Yeah, you could select. Let's select both Division 1 and 2, or 1 and 6. Yeah. So marathon and those 2. Show separately. So yeah, unfortunately, you're probably going to be a bunch of pages on this one. Yeah. So this isn't a good use case because you would kill a tree. But yeah, when actually click So there's the very last page, which is your half marathoners, and it sorts it. Yeah, and so here's the adventure Matt and I have been on the last couple days. We've got a pretty pesky timer that's not happy about how RunSignUp reports non-finishers. So this isn't released yet, but it will be by the weekend. So the way exactly how our lap race works, where you're sorted to the bottom, it sorts to the bottom. It basically sorts by the number of splits you did, or laps you ran, and then if for the people that all ran the same number of laps, it's whoever did it the fastest. So at a triathlon, for example, at RunSignUp, you certainly do see the non-finishers, but you see them at the bottom of the list, which everybody would want, but you see them kind of in a random order. So we're correcting that to show in the bottom of the list in this same sequence. So, if it's a race where you have 5 splits, it's going to show the non-finishers in sequence by those that completed 4, and then all those that completed 4 who did it the fastest, and then those that completed 3, and then 2, and then 1. So, that little fix should be available by next weekend. Probably not this weekend.
You're talking specifically about the RSU table.
Yes, right.
So when people were trying to follow a multi-segment race.
Right. Yeah. So the complaint was when I scroll through all the finishers, sure, they're in order, but when I get to the bottom and now I start seeing the non-finishers, they're kind of random, and he's right, they were. Yeah. So the only caveat is the only way I could pull this off was the setting is going to be also assign a finish position to non-finishers. So in this case, the test race he gave me stopped at position 135, and then the finish position for all the non-finishers was kind of empty. Well, with this setting, for the meantime, unfortunately, you're going to see that their finisher number 136, the first one. So they technically aren't a finisher, but that's how they get sequenced. Yeah. All right. Okay. Race 192. So here's another one of those. Why didn't Race Director do this a long time ago? Because I could have been doing this in 1992, because doing calculations has been a part of Race Director forever. But now if you go in this race, which has got lots of splits, I think it's a triathlon, just do enter results calculate. Yeah. And you'll note the calculation cycle takes much longer in races where you've got complicated, everything by division is a little bit different. But now you're going to get, but as we're calculating results, we certainly have the ability to sense things that just don't look right. So for example, somebody hitting the end of the bike at one time, but going out on T1 before that. Makes no sense. So now when that happens, at least you're getting a chance to see it. So that happened in this case. And the result is, and often it'll be like this, because maybe you just assign the wrong occurrence to the wrong segment. So as you can see, the bike time is, they're finishing the bike somehow after they go out onto the run. So, and the problem will show right out at you. Hey, bike and T2 don't make sense here. Okay, how are we doing on time? I'm getting to the end of my list.
Yeah, we have like 5 minutes.
All right, so Athlinks. So Athlinks, I'm not sure how many of you are Chronotrack timers, but Athlinks and Chronotrack are very much the same thing almost. They've just opened up a way for any race to publish results to their site. Now, Athlinks, the intention isn't for live results. The intention is if you want to send your race results to Athlinks, that's something you would probably be doing just before you close down the computer and shut down the your timing trailer. So Race Director now has a way to publish results to Athlinks and Race 118. Well, you know what? You should never do this in a demo. Let's try it for this race. So go to, this is a big one though, isn't it?
438.
Oh no, this is all right. All right, so reports. Well, we do have results in this race, right? Yeah, good. All right, so let's go to under reports, and I put it here because it's kind of and there's a published Athlinks. And actually, if you install and update Race Director right now, you won't see this. It's not quite ready for prime time. But the idea here is, this is a race I've already. Let's be adventuresome and let's close this race. And let's open any other race. 26. Pretty sure that has results. Under reports, yeah, good. Results reports, it'll be at the bottom of the list. All right, so it's a 3-step process. You're going to have to fill in a city, state, and country. And the state and country code have to be valid, U.S. Yep. All right, first, step 1 is create what's called an Athlinks event. So just hit that button. Oh, you have probably. All right, okay, so it's signed at what Athlinks needs to know for this race. They have what's called a master event. So now just select only a single division, division number 1, and we'll create a Athlinks race. Yes? Updated and publish. That's it. So obviously you probably would have selected all the divisions. Now, when you hit here's the warning. As I said, this is not live results. So it might take a minute, 2 minutes even, before we'll actually, I'm pretty sure that if we go to the results link, scroll down. Yeah, so it's not there yet. So in a couple minutes it will be. So that's the Athlinks. That should be ready to go in the next couple weeks. So, and scroll down. Yeah, not there yet. That's it. I'm around all day. Come and see me. Thanks for your attention. I love you too, so that's great. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, this software couldn't be where it is today without everyone in the room here, because you guys make the features.
Exactly.
We just figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So thank you all for your crazy races you put on.